Good morning and welcome to Unfiltered Vision News, bringing you the news unfiltered Monday through Friday, 7 to 9 a.m. Eastern. My name is Dr. Ashaki Noni Nichols, and I will be your host. Thank you so much for joining me this morning. Sorry, I was running a little bit late, a little bit of technical difficulties. What I didn't realize is that a lot of the new subdivisions that are close to my established subdivision, they're putting in the cable lines. And so I've been wondering, I was like, why is the cable so messed up? Why? And I was just like, oh, yeah, because they're putting in new lines, right? But that is actually disrupting the established lines. So that's why my internet's been kind of patchy, breaking in and out weirdly in different areas. I was like, okay, that's what's been going on. So, with that, let's get into Kids Corner.
A 6-year-old rich kid who loved his toys. One morning, a little mistake would teach him that money can't always fix everything. Max realized that no matter how rich you are, mistakes can happen. Even money can't undo a spill once it's on the floor. Max ran to his nanny, Lily, a kind woman asking for help. She smiled and said, "Even small mistakes teach big lessons." Lily gave Max a small cloth and said, "Let's clean together." Max realized helping yourself can feel better than someone fixing things for you. Max felt proud. He understood that wealth is great, but learning responsibility and helping yourself is even more valuable. Max told his friend in the city park, "Even little mistakes can teach you big lessons if you try to fix them yourself." Max learned that mistakes are normal, but responsibility and helping yourself teaches more than money ever could. A rich heart beats money every time.
Yes, yes, it does. And so those are good words of wisdom to remember. And with that, let's get into honoring God with our body. God, please protect and guard our thoughts. God, help me to fix my thoughts on what is true and honorable and right and pure and lovely and admirable. So I will think about things that are excellent and worthy of praise. God, please protect my ears. Help me to listen to your voice. God, help me to be quick to listen, slow to speak, and slow to become angry. God, please protect my eyes from sin's damage. God, I make a covenant with my eyes not to look lustfully. God, please speak life over my mouth. God, set a guard over my mouth. Lord, keep watch over the doors of my lips. God, please protect my hands and help me to serve generously. God, help me to do good to everyone and especially to those who belong to our family in the faith. God, please protect my organs. Help me to honor you, God, with purity. God, help me to honor you with my body. And God, please protect my feet and help me to walk in your path. God, let your word be a lamp for my feet and a light on my path. So that was, the little short mantra slash prayer that we do every morning just to set our minds right for the day. And with that, we're going to get into our recap with Conscious Outlaw. And let me bring Conscious to the stage. Good morning, Conscious. How are you?
Good morning. Good morning, Unfiltered Vision family. How are we doing this Monday morning?
Doing good. Sorry about the late start. Of course, my internet was a little
Oh,
off, so hopefully it'll be good for the show.
oh, you're fine. I was running a little bit behind to myself. But yeah, so we had a great weekend. We had an awesome weekend for sports. The thing that's taking the forefront is the college football playoff bracket.
Hmm.
So the first round is over with. Oregon, they moved on. They won 51-39 against James Madison. Ole Miss won 41-10 against Tulane. Miami had and Texas A&M was a very close game and very low scoring game. Miami scored 10 points and Texas A&M only scored three. Alabama pushed past Oklahoma. They always seem to show up at playoff at the end of the year time. They
Yeah.
won 34-24. It was a very good game. They had to make a comeback run. Yes.
Okay.
So the next round is the teams that have byes are going to play their first game. So Oregon is going to play Texas Tech. Alabama's going to play the number one seed Indiana. Ole
Mhm.
Miss is going to play Georgia, and Miami's going to play the number two seed Ohio State. And that's coming up this next weekend. Coming up it's for the 31st, the New Year Eve games. So
Oh,
that's what's going on. Yeah, with college football. NFL's been very interesting. They're going down the stretch. The Eagles clinched their division, so they're locked into the playoffs. They're still now the NFC North. The Birds beat the Packers like we kind of thought was going to happen.
Mhm.
Very exciting game too, and yeah, and Pittsburgh they beat the Lions, so they're still in the hunt also. And the Ravens and the Patriots played, and the Patriots clinched. So it's that's what's going on in NFL. But the most important thing, well, now I said the most important thing, but the most exciting thing happened over the weekend was the Joshua Jake Paul fight. That's what everyone talked about. He finally met a real fighter, and he made it to the sixth round, and he lost badly.
Wow.
It didn't look good. He didn't look like he's a real boxer. He got his jaw broke in two places. Yeah,
Mm.
he met a real boxer. So and the internet was hot on fire, playing clips and memeing them up. So that was very interesting weekend for boxing. Also, Terrence Crawford retired. He retired undefeated. I guess because of all the issues with taking fights and some of the other things, he decided that he doesn't want to fight. He's going to retire with undefeated, I believe, 42-0.
Okay.
So
And
that's
sometimes that's smart. I appreciate that because sometimes ego can take over and it takes a turn, right?
Yeah, and boxing's a very like kind of like how Muhammad Ali, unfortunately, it takes a toll on you. But
Mhm.
he has kids and he's getting out with his wits about him, like kind of like Floyd Mayweather and stuff. So that's important that he has his health, his wits, and has enough money to retire, take care of his family. So God bless him and his family.
Wow, that's awesome. Thank you so much for that recap. Yeah, I was on grandma detail this weekend, so I didn't watch a lot of sports. I was hanging out with my grandson. So, yeah. Some of the football games though, the college football games, they were good, but my husband kept bringing up the fact, Notre Dame, how they were just like, we're not going to go. But then you look at how bad Tulane got beat, and it was like, mm. You know what I
Yeah,
mean?
yeah, it makes you wonder if Notre Dame should have got that spot because yeah, that was pretty bad. 54 to 34, 51 to 34. It looked like they didn't belong.
Yeah, and then there was the other game that was low scoring, and it it's one of those things. It's like, okay, they should get in based on their record, not necessarily the votes. But again, you did have teams that did well, right, in their divisions. But it's when you play teams that are like in outside divisions against these upper team divisions. Yeah, it's very telling when the playoffs happen.
Yeah. So that's all I got. We're gonna have another great weekend coming up, and then also we'll have more football coming up. So this is the time for football all through the New Year's and end of the year. So you all have a great week and have a great happy holiday, Christmas Eve and Christmas Day to next week, and I will see you all next week.
All right, thank you so much, Conscious. Appreciate you.
Appreciate you.
All right. Yep. So that was our recap with Conscious Outlaw. We have some hellos this morning. Brianne Jaggle. Thank you so much. And hi. Thank you so much for joining us at YouTube. Minnesota Fats. Thank you for joining us and reposting the stream. And Rua8. Hi. And thank you so much for joining us on YouTube. So let's get into the news. So there were some clips that I came across on Fox News, and Danielle Carter, she is running for mayor in the city of Chicago, and I just wanted to play a video because there's been a lot of talk going on in Chicago, especially now because of the budget issue that they're having in the budget that they're trying to get passed, and there's been a lot of back and forth with the aldermen and city council, but she breaks down and asks some really important questions of where this should be going next. So let's check it out.
Clips read, Danielle Carter Walters. Danielle, we appreciate you so much. Thank you for spending the time with us tonight. What was your reaction when you heard about this Washington Post editorial? He's raising taxes and papering over problems.
Yes, first, let me say thank you to Gregory Ravino for coming back. We welcome you with open arms. And yes, Brandon Johnson have lost his mind. And I think most of Chicago who received that enormous property tax bill, I think they're with me. We're not only funding illegal aliens' free lifestyle, we're funding Brandon Johnson and his administration lifestyle. If this 2026 budget passes, his Commissioner of Aviation, Michael McMurray, is set to receive a $58,000 raise. If this budget passed, Mary Richardson Lowry, corporate counsel, she's set to receive a $21,000 raise. If this budget passes, Chris Brown, who's over the Chicago Public Library, he's making $217,000. He's set to receive $223,000, and that will be.
They are going to pay somebody over the library close to $500,000 as a salary. See, this is the problem, in my opinion, with a lot of these cities. I'm like, we're kind of finding out where some of the money's going, right? It's in the salaries. And you're over the libraries and you need almost $500,000 a year as a salary. Not like that's your budget to like do things with that. Like that's what you're going to be paid. It's weird.
Making him, he'll be making more than a mayor. So these are the type of raises this administration is getting. Let's talk about Chris Brown over the commissioner over the Chicago Public Library. He's set to be making all this money. So listen, we're tired. We're the taxpayers, we're done, and we see that they're spending our money on illegal aliens, funding them, and on their lifestyles. We're done with this. When we saw that property tax bill, the residents are mad. We're going to town halls all on every south, west side, north side. They're angry. And we're not going for this. So we thank ICE because we know billions of dollars went to fund illegal aliens. And President Trump and ICE is cleaning the city up.
So how can they be giving themselves tens of thousands of dollars in raises when Chicago is failing? You know, they basically, they spent through their pandemic funds and they're still spending like they have those pandemic funds when they don't. The pandemic's over. And they're keeping bloated payrolls or programs. They want things like a $33 a head head tax on each worker working for large businesses. Those businesses are going to flee. Chicago could tip over. How can they give themselves tens of thousands of dollars in raises when Chicago is basically in the red?
Because they don't care about the citizens. We fund their lifestyle. And the alderman, which is they're getting raises, $3,000 to $4,000 raise. Byron Central Lopez, alderman, he said he's fighting for illegal aliens to get rental assistance because they're scared to come out of their houses because ICE is on the streets. He's calling for an eviction moratorium so that they cannot be evicted. Landlords cannot evict illegal aliens because they're scared to come out of their houses because ICE is in the streets. And he wants us to keep funding this. This is crazy. So we're paying for it. The taxpayers, we are paying for this.
Thank you so much, Chicago resident Danielle Carter Walters. It's great to have you back on the show.
That's wild. And where did we hear about them funding illegal aliens to prevent eviction? Oh, yeah, that was Los Angeles. Karen Bass did that earlier this summer, if you guys remember, right? We were covering that when ICE went there. And it was like, oh, people are afraid to go outside. We need an eviction moratorium. Have any U.S. citizens gotten an eviction moratorium? Oh, yeah, they did that during the pandemic, right? But then what ended up happening was a lot of the landlords, right? They had to They unfortunately they couldn't afford the mortgages on those properties and they ended up losing those properties. And who was there to just stand in the gap to get those properties? BlackRock, Vanguard. Are we using illegal aliens to do that again? What happened during the pandemic? And why is it so why do you think it's so they're just under the gun to protect people that are here illegally, by the way? I'm just saying they're here illegally. You keep telling us that they aren't getting services, that they aren't getting housing, but you just admitted that you are putting in a policy to protect them from getting evicted and you know they're here illegally. Like, what more evidence do we need? Like, that alderman should be in prison, federal prison, for trying to figure out how to harbor illegal aliens. It's called Title 8, Section 1324. I want arrest, DOJ. U.S. attorneys over these states. I want arrest. People are outwardly committing crimes and nothing's happening. I mean, the American people, we're exhausted. We are exhausted. I know people keep pushing back and they say, oh, no, we don't need a new form of government. We need to deal with what we have. No, because if we have a new form of government put in place, we need everybody arrested who's breaking the law, period. Because it's exhausting. It's exhausting to see the level of corruption that we've seen over the past 6 years. Anybody with me? Bueller? This is tiring. We should not be putting up with this. And if our representatives are going to continue to harbor illegal aliens outwardly, he wasn't saying that, oh, we need, eviction moratorium or residence. You're outwardly protecting illegal aliens. Now, if they were here legally, if they had proper status here legally, why would they be afraid to go outside? That means they don't need to be here. I'm glad that President Trump has upped the countries and stopped the any refugee or asylee programs. So now anybody going to court, and now they've set up like certain court shops, which I'm loving. I hope I got the video for it because I was watching so many videos. I was like, oh, I got this one. But apparently here in Atlanta, I think it's the Department of Homeland Security. I've double checked, but to any avail, they have set up an area for people to go and get their immigration status updated. And I'm loving it because if ICE is there and these people come in there illegally, done. You're done. You're going home because you've already gotten your due process because you already went to court. And a lot of these people have deportation orders. So if they go in there like trying to falsify documents to get their immigration, they're done. They're done. And I'm glad because it's time for the American people to be released from paying for people to be here illegally on our soil. Like and to me at this point, it's insult to injury. It really, really is. And Beyond Skeptical, thank you so much for reposting the stream and joining us this morning. And Sincerely Lawless, good morning to you too. She says, good morning, founder. Thank you for joining us and reposting the stream. And good morning, Uncle Coolwater. And Uncle Coolwater says, good morning. I am a firm believer that the majority of immigrants, illegal or legal, I think you meant to say, need to go back to their home countries. Time to go home. Get the heck up out of America. Yeah, and I think a lot of people have that sentiment. And it's not because we're not trying to be a generous country. I don't think that's it at all. The problem is the generosity isn't being extended to American citizens. The generosity is being extended for people here illegally, right? With impunity, with no repercussions, in the face of the American people, like, we can do the wrong thing and what are you going to do about it? Like, that's where I'm at with this conversation, because it's almost like, well, we're just going to keep doing the wrong thing. What are you going to do about it? What are you going to do? Well, the American people, we're going to take names, take notice, and make sure that you don't get any office anymore. This is why I started the Redemption Party. This is exactly why I started the Redemption Party, because I'm tired of both parties taking advantage of us. It's like people are running back and forth between the Democratic Party and the Republican Party. And here's my thing: if you want to be a Republican or a Democrat, then be that, but be the person in those parties to make changes, to do better for the American people. Don't go along with things that are wrong, especially in the Democratic Party. You know it's wrong for people to be here illegally. Do not support that. You need to push against that. And you need to tell people in your party, no, we need to make sure that the people that are here legally, right, they follow the laws first and foremost. And we do not support illegal immigration ever. That's what people in the Democratic Party need to start standing up and doing. Okay. And then on the Republican side, same thing. Because there are some Republicans that do support illegal immigration, whether we want to admit it or not, because they're not fighting against it. And if they're not fighting against it, then they support it. Like, why hasn't the Pause Act from Chip Roy been passed? You have the majority in the House and the Senate. Like, why aren't we ramming this stuff through? Huh? Because the president will sign it immediately. This is the problem with the Republican Party and the Democratic Party, by the way. But the Democrats, you know what I'm saying, that they will rush stuff through. Okay. They will rush stuff through because they did it with the CARES Act, with the Inflation Reduction Act. Like, they had stuff set ready to go. Boom. The what was that? The I won't call it the Green Act, but the Build Back Better. We did that. The thing where they went towards the green energy, they did that. Like, they ran stuff through. They had all levers. They did it. Everybody was in lockstep. It didn't matter. They didn't care if they had to bring in VP Harris for a tie. They did it. Look, Republicans, what are y'all doing? I don't want to hear it anymore. I don't want to hear it. You're just standing there, just, I don't know, just doing things that you shouldn't be doing. It's really sad. Again, it's very sad. And EPPE says, encourage more young Black men from America to run for office. Definitely, because, and I agree. I see a lot of, men and women, more women, right, of all different nationalities, especially women running for office. But where are our men? And, I think because, Black men get demonized, right? Whether they're Republican or Democrat, I'm saying, I mean, I don't know if anybody agrees or disagrees with me, but I see the demonization of our men. Okay. And they need to run. I was in certain X spaces, and there was one person saying, hey, and it was a gentleman, he was like, yeah, we need to stand up, we need to retake the Democratic Party, and I appreciate him, and I'm like, yeah, then do that. I'm saying? Build that coalition within the Democratic Party to do that, to steer the party to go the right way. You can't do it by yourself. Obviously, you need some help doing it, but do it and get it done. You need to build that coalition. You need to be boots on the ground, as they say. It's not that it can't be done. It can be. Is it a behemoth? Yes, and you eat an elephant one bite at a time. But that means small races, right? In different cities around the country, putting people in office that are going to do right by the people, regardless of the party letter behind their name. Because a lot of these local races, they're supposed to be nonpartisan. So you're not even supposed to be a Republican or a Democrat. But we've seen over the years that they are very partisan in how they carry out how they govern, which is really, really sad. And okay, that doesn't make sense. But EPPE says America's public schools taught us in reverse speak on that they got to be better than Epstein, host of Sickos. Yeah, definitely. And Synarch Block. Let's see. Oh, you're in Los Angeles. Wow. Thank you for joining us. You're very early this morning. Let me know what you disagree with. And Yes, I actually, Mark DeGloria says, "Can you write in cursive?" Yes, I can write in cursive. I actually learned to write in cursive when I was 7, and at that point, I was going into the 3rd grade. Yeah, I skipped kindergarten, um, because I was in Head Start in Indiana, and I actually could read, write, handwrite, and do all those things. And when I moved to California, they were a little bit behind those of us in Indiana. So when I got there and I could do all these things, they put me in the 1st grade and I was 5 and then I turned 6 and so on and so forth. This is why I graduated at 17. But yeah, they stopped teaching the kids how to handwrite over 20 years ago because my bonus son, he will be 21 in January. He's got a birthday coming up. I'm really excited for him. But he doesn't know how to handwrite. And I don't think that that was an accident. You know, a lot of our documents by the individuals that framed the Constitution, they all wrote in cursive, in handwriting, right? It wasn't print. And so a lot of these children that are being brought up, they're going to have a very difficult time, you know, sorting out documents by the founding fathers. And the sad part is there'll be people like, well, let me interpret it for you. And it's like, no, no. Our babies need to know how to read, write, comprehend, and that they're not being taught. And it's so, so sad that that's happening. And EPP says young Black men are the next recipients of world power. Okay. Look, it could happen. Yeah. And user TTX, thank you for joining us this morning. She says, or I'm sorry, not sure if you're she or he, but education system is way behind. Yes. And it shouldn't be. And, you know, and I think that's a lot of people's issue with like the Department of Education, right? It was put in place in the 80s, and yeah, I'd actually, you know, reviewed or researched it a little bit. I guess in the late 1800s, they had an iteration of the Department of Education put in place, and it laxed, and it came back in, you know, the 1970s roughly, and then they put the Department of Education fully in place around the 80s. But our children have not, their education has gotten worse, right? We've thrown more money at education. So, how do you throw more money at education and then you have a population of individuals who are less educated? Right. And then some people's issue is like, hey, let's throw more money at it. It's like, no, no. And Dread Novella says, I agree because schools don't talk about how Blacks enslaved their own people. They don't talk about that. They don't even talk about how, you know, how should I say it, how the slave trade was monetized, not just by people in Africa, but other nations, right? Coming here. They don't talk about how even when they tried to stop slavery, you know, I should say importing slaves, right, from overseas, how there were certain ports of America you couldn't bring people in as slaves. You know, they don't talk about that part either. So there was a lot. Look, slavery still happens today. And it happens with a lot of these countries, right, that have been seeking asylum and seeking to be refugees here in America. Even those not seeking to be refugees, people that have come over here illegally in mass. They come from countries that have that mentality, right? Who actually deal in the slave trade as we speak. People also forget that, you know, the sex slave trade, it's a multi-billion-dollar business. Not that it's just happening, it's a business. People are bought and sold every day. Don't talk about that, but it's happening. Our federal government knows it's happening and no one has shut it down and nobody talks about it. Like the Epstein files. Come on now. Epstein files is a trip. And Spud McKenzie says throwing money on education equals immigrant education assistance programs. Yeah. And you know, that's something that President Trump is looking to stop. I think they want to try to stop the funding going on that's been happening in a lot of these states, especially the ones that claim to be sanctuary states, because they've been pulling money and resources from American children to the immigrant class. But see, this is a model, and it's been happening in Europe for a long time. And now it's over here. And the question is, what are we going to do with it? What are we really going to do? And Lovely, thank you so much for joining us here and reposting the stream. I appreciate all you guys. I can't read all of your comments, but I'm reading them here on this side, and I have to make sure because I don't have a moderator. So anybody would love to be a moderator and help me out going into the new year, I'd appreciate it. I truly, truly would. It's interesting. Oh, completely false. Sorry, guys. Okay. It took almost. Wow. Okay. I mean, well, that's something good. Thank you, EPPE, for that little bit of information because no, I don't know everything. This is completely false. Indigenous Negro Indians, sorry, are the owners of Turtle Island, aka America, or World War One, was against us people, us US people, and it took almost 300 years to take our land. Wow. Okay, so that's something I've got to look into. Thank you for sharing that information. And Anthony Dennis 224 is sending hellos from Philadelphia, Pennsylvania. Now, with that, I want to get into some more clips that I have to get into some more of this news for today.
Like Tim Walz. Well, we're learning new details about the magnitude of Minnesota's massive welfare fraud. Federal authorities say it could total over $9 billion. The
fraud is not small. It isn't isolated. The magnitude cannot be overstated. What we see in Minnesota is not a handful of bad actors committing crimes. It's a staggering industrial scale fraud. It's swamping Minnesota and calling into question everything we know about our state.
But Tim Walz and his administration are pushing back, saying there was only a little bit of fraud.
What you're seeing here is you're seeing a weaponization. We'll continue to fix it. They're going to continue to come up with numbers that don't have it there, and it's sensationalized. I don't expect anything different from this administration.
The evidence that we have indicates tens of millions of dollars in fraud. There isn't a final number at this point, but we don't have evidence to suggest that level of fraud or a $9 billion number.
Here, but you caught fraud. And you just admitted to the fact that you're like, yeah, there might be some. And this is what I said on the show last week. There is somebody on the inside pushing the button. The people on the outside, right, benefiting from what they're doing fraud wise. You know what I'm saying? They're getting the money. They're on the beneficiary side of getting the fraud. But there's somebody on the inside allowing this to happen. This doesn't happen with somebody not knowing. They know. This goes back to the core of whoever pushes that button, because you got to remember, states, they have departments that they put in place specifically to handle federal dissemination of these funds, right? We learned this, and I'm kind of glad that the shutdown happened, because it kind of forced us to go like, why are we in this shutdown? How does it work? How do the levers, start back? And when they do, what are we doing? But what it showed was who is pressing the button. Who is pressing the button? Who is pulling the levers? And what we found out was, is like SNAP, for example, it doesn't just come into the state, it goes into a state office, right? The state hires a specific set of people in a department to make sure that those funds are properly disseminated, right? So I don't know how many people it is per state. I would think it would vary, right, per state, because obviously California is bigger than New Jersey, for example, right? So it may not take the same amount of people in each state. But again, there's a designated group So it goes back to who in that group knew about the fraud that was occurring. So you can narrow it down. So it's not like it's 5 or 6 different groups. It all comes back to one group. It's really intense.
But Governor Walz can't hide from this story as House Oversight Committee Chair James Comer is investigating the scandal and is determined to uncover the truth.
He's going to have to answer questions about the billions, not millions, not hundreds of millions, billions of dollars of fraud that we see wasted in Minnesota. And the fact that, according to state whistleblowers, state employees in Minnesota, most of whom are Democrats, they allege that they alerted both Governor Walz and Attorney General Keith Ellison about this fraud, and they did nothing about it because they didn't want to offend that massive Somali population.
Guy, this to me, if there was ever an investigation to be had and Republicans were ever going to take time to investigate anything, I would say this would probably be it. And I don't think Minnesota is where it should stop. I think Minnesota is where it should start, because I have a feeling many other states we could probably uncover some billions with the B. But I know you and I both saw a tweet about this, about just massive welfare fraud in general and SNAP fraud. I mean, it spans a lot of different categories, right? But if you break down the numbers, I think we saw a real staggering one about how much money we're actually being robbed of in this country.
Yeah, I mean, you can go through any of the numbers, actually. Starting just in Minnesota, it seems like what we're hearing from the governor there is, oh, the Republicans are making up numbers. No, this was a federal prosecutor after a very in-depth, substantial investigation into what he called industrial scale fraud in the state of Minnesota, all presided over by Governor Tim Walz. And out of one side of his mouth, Walz is trying to say, like, oh, we're going to fix it, and it's bad. Out of the other side of his mouth, he's like, well, it's really not that much. It's only tens of millions, according to his little minion there. And that means they are not ever going to be serious about this. They are perfectly comfortable with their taxpayers being robbed blind for political and identity reasons. And he just wants to get reelected next year. So he wants to pretend like this is some sort of GOP witch hunt, when in fact, the prosecutor in this case, and we saw a bit in that clip from him. I just want to read one more quote from him, talking about why it is especially bad in Minnesota. Quote, Minnesota has become a magnet for fraud, so much so that we have developed a fraud tourism industry. People coming to our state purely to exploit and defraud its programs. This is a deeply unsettling reality all Minnesotans should understand. It is so bad in Minnesota that people from around the world, it seems, are traveling there to steal from taxpayers. And that's the response we're seeing from the governor. It's pathetic.
You know, Joey, we invite the third world, and in return, they rob us blind. That's such a nice, generous gift they've given back to us. I mean, Tim Walz has made a big thing about, don't say it's the Somalis, but when you look at the fraud, it was done by the Somali population. So he wants to make it about race. He wants to make it about identity. The mayor there wants to eat Somali food and almost throw up and say, I love the Somalis. But I don't think they're understanding that we don't care because it's their race or their religion. We care because it's a group of people who are doing it. And to Guy's point, apparently they're doing it in a well-organized way, and they targeted the state for it.
Yeah, I don't care about their race. I do care about their country of origin. I mean, Rob O'Neill, if you don't know who he is the man who shot bin Laden. He put the book out. But before that, or after that, I'm not sure, he also was on the team that saved Captain Phillips. And he posted on X today, yeah, the Somalis are world famous for being pirates. Of course, they came here to steal and defraud us. He's like, it's a part of their culture. I don't know how you call that racist. If it's true, it's true. I mean, I don't have to go back to Mogadishu to see these problems. But I will say this when it comes to what's being said, is never snatch defeat from the jaws of victory. If it's a $1 billion scam, that's huge. If it's a $500 million scam, that's huge. I hope Joe Thompson knows exactly what he's talking about when he uses the $9 billion number, because I don't want Tim Walz and Democrats to have an argument at all to go back to the voters and deceive them with well, they're blowing it out of proportion. It's not that big of a deal. So I hope when he says $9 billion, he's got the paperwork to prove it, because I don't want them to give them room to have a rebuttal, because this is egregious I mean, just so overtly egregious.
It's bad. Molly.
Yeah, and to Joey's point, the question is how quickly can they prosecute these cases, and that's going to rack up the honest total when it all gets to the end of it. And these cases can be hard to prosecute and to prove and to chase down money trails. The House Oversight Committee in this letter to Keith Ellison, the prosecutor here in this case, they make the argument that the state essentially knew that this fraud was happening and allowed it to occur. In this letter, it says a June 2024 report from the Minnesota Department of Education found that the threat of litigation and negative press from providers engaged in the fraud schemes affected how state officials use their regulatory power. A former fraud investigator in the Attorney General's office said that state regulators, especially those in the Democratic-led administration, were reluctant to take action in response to the allegations involving the Somali community. So there were concerns. So the government protecting itself is the allegation.
They didn't want to be called a name in the local or national press.
Yeah.
So they allowed their taxpayers and all of us to be robbed blind. What a Christmas tale.
Hey, Sean Hannity here. Hey, click here to subscribe to follow.
And that's the problem, because a lot of these things, especially identity politics, right? It does come back around to bite you in the butt. It does. And then this proves it. Okay. Because they knew fraud was going on. You cannot not know. And the whistleblowers were like, yeah, they had to know because we told them. And we sounded the alarm, and they turned a blind eye because they wanted to keep a particular voting bloc, and they didn't want to be seen as, quote unquote, a racist. Somalis are not a part of any race. Okay, first of all, race in America is a caste system, and it's basically shown itself to be so. Right? We were talking about this months ago. Now everybody talks about it. It's a caste system. It's been a caste system. It has been a caste system, and it places people according to the hue of their skin color, right? If you have a lighter skin color, you're going to be at the top. If you have a darker skin color, you're going to be at the bottom. This is even within the Black community. And I'm not wrong. People that have a lighter skin tone, right, are given positions that are higher up because it puts them closer to people that are Caucasian or white. White was put at the top. You get a little bit lighter, you're kind of in the middle. You know what I'm saying? But Black is at the very bottom. It has been, it is what it is. Not to hurt anybody's feelings out there, but it is what it is, regardless of whether you're an American or not. The caste system is real. Okay. The thing about with a lot of these different, I should say, individuals coming from different countries, right? And we'll use Somalia, for example, because it is what it is. They're from Africa. And so technically they are from the continent of Africa. They are from the country of Somalia. Okay. They're not Black. They're not Black Americans. They are not Negroes. Okay. If we want to be real specific, they are not Negroes. So by them coming over here and say, you're racist for going against us. No, they're not. You can't even play the race game. You're not even invited to the caste system. Okay. Because you identified with whiteness. We need to pull some people's birth certificates. We need to pull some people's applications and see if they put Black on that application. I guarantee you they didn't. I guarantee you they put white. Because they know how the game is played over here. Stop that. Stop it. Just hilarious. But the way caste systems work is the people that are placed at the top stay at the top. And then it's everybody else. Even VP Harris, if you look at her birth certificate, which I did have a copy of, her mother, a Brahmin Indian, put white as her ethnicity as a parent. Okay. Her father put Jamaican as his ethnicity. Jamaican isn't ethnicity, it's a nationality. These people are both Brahmin Indians. Okay, that is their ethnicity, but they didn't put that on the birth certificate for her. So what is she? Is she white or is she Jamaican? She's not a Black American. She's not a Negro. What are we doing? What are we doing? They played the caste system game. And they knew if they put Black on anywhere on her birth certificate, she wouldn't have the opportunities afforded to her that she was able to attain. That's just how it is. You don't have to like it. It is what it is. So let's just deal in truth and facts. Just saying. And so, with that, we're going to take a quick break. And when we return, we're going to get into some more of this news on our Monday recap. So, thank you so much for joining me here on Unfiltered Vision News. And we will see you on the other side.
The browsers of today are broken. They've been overtaken by a barrage of sneaky and annoying ads, trackers that follow your habits, and cookies that build profiles, and all sorts of other internet clutter that's taking precedence over the content that you want to see. In fact, these useless bites can take up to a whopping 50% of page load times, with a third of it anxiously trying to learn more about you. To make matters worse, some ad blockers are even letting ads through when large advertisers pay them. But do you really want a leaky ad blocker? It's because of these very reasons that we developed Brave, a new browser that kicks internet crud to the curb and makes it faster, safer, and better to surf the web than your current browser. With Brave, everything you need is built right in. We integrated technology that automatically blocks trackers, annoying ads, and shields everything that can cramp your style and destruct your privacy. With it, you can expect increased speeds nearly 2 times faster on laptops and up to 4 times faster on mobile. And unlike any other browser, Brave allows you to support your favorite publishers with automatic micropayments. So it's a win-win for you and your favorite sites. To top it all off, Brave is open source because we truly believe it's our web and we need to fix it together. So ask yourself this question. Do you want a web browser made for the internet of today? If so, try Brave. It's faster, safer, and ad-free.
And we are back. Thank you so much for joining me here on Unfiltered Vision News, bringing you the news unfiltered Monday through Friday, 7 to 9 a.m. Eastern. My name is Dr. Ashaki Noni Nichols, and I will be your host. And from our last segment, we were talking a lot about some of the fraud going on in Minnesota. Unfortunately, it has come back to the Somali community, but there are other communities that should be investigated. It should be investigated across the board, in my opinion. It doesn't matter whether we think it's one particular group. Let's just look at SNAP, see the fraud that's occurring, and then hold the people accountable that committed the fraud. I think that's real simple. But then we can break out like where the most fraud occurred, okay, and who was doing it. Because, I talked a little bit about fraud tourism, last week from some of the videos that I pulled, and they were looking at what they did in Minnesota, and they started committing fraud in Pennsylvania. They started committing fraud in Ohio, in Maine, Massachusetts. Nobody's talking about these other states where the similar fraud schemes are happening. Okay. And those are the things that we have to really still investigate and look at. And so I did a little bit of research in Grok. And I said, there's a claim that there may be 9 billion or more in fraud. Is there any validity to the number? Because I want to, make sure, because I'm like, they're tapping, hey, it could be high as 18 billion. I'm like, wow, that number is pretty outstanding. I mean, Minnesota, it's not that big of a state. It's not California. I'm just saying, right? Population wise, it just isn't that big. And if it's happening on that large of a scale and it's been ignored, that's crazy. So obviously it's not just SNAP, it's other entitlement programs as well that are supposed to be there to help people. And they've pointed out some of the fraud, like the autism claims that people were saying their children were autistic when they weren't, but they were still getting those benefits. So that was one. HSS, where they were claiming, hey, we'll help these people get housing. We'll help them do these things, but they were getting the contracts and they were getting the money, but they weren't helping the people get the housing and other services that they needed. So it all comes back to, again, somebody on the inside was allowing this and pushing the button. Who is that person? Who are those individuals is what they need to really get down to, in my opinion. So the claim appears to refer to recent allegations of widespread fraud in Minnesota, Medicaid and social programs, particularly those administered under federal funds during Governor Tim Walz's tenure, right? So federal prosecutors, including U.S. Attorney Joe Thompson, have publicly estimated that the total fraud across 14 high-risk programs, right, so more than one program, could exceed $9 billion based on audits of $18 billion in payouts. So the payouts were $18 billion, but the fraud is $9 billion. So we've got to make sure it's not $18 billion in fraud, right? It's about $9 billion in fraud. Could it be higher? It could be, but the whole $18 billion isn't. And so that's what we have to, keep into perspective. So it's that other context text for $9 billion fraud claims. Okay. They don't align as closely with the 9 billion or more phrasing, which matches this Minnesota case. So I just wanted to pull that up for perspective. And then the other thing I asked, I said, it seems that there are cities, some cities, primarily Democratic, and they are, it is what it is, that they're taxing businesses to fund the city, right? And so, yeah, we know they're taxing the residents, but businesses also. And I just was like, can you kind of point out some of these cities that are doing this? And so it gave me a brief outline. The first one that came up was Chicago, right? And it's like this corporate head tax. First, it started out $21. Now it's $33. Like every single time somebody gets interviewed, the number keeps going up. I'm like, pick a number, right? How do we go from 21 to 33? It's already unpopular, but you're just going to keep raising the number. Like businesses are going to run from Chicago, and I don't blame them. So this would be monthly or annually, depending on the version, right? On large companies, 100 to 500 employees, to address budget deficits. So an additional hikes in alcohol, liquor taxes, checkout bag taxes, what? By eliminating retailer commissions, and weekend parking garage taxes. These aim to generate revenue for general city funding, violence prevention, and pensions. That's interesting. Okay. General city funding is just like, so whatever we need the money for, that's what we're going to use it for. What? Look, I know the people of Chicago are exhausted. I mean, exhausted to the point like the Bears, they want to move. They want to leave the city of Chicago. They're looking at Hammond and Gary, Indiana. I know. Makes you throw up in your mouth a little bit. And I was born in Indiana. I have relatives in Gary and Hammond. Why would you move there? Like, that city is a wasteland. Gary and Hammond, they're wastelands. And you would literally move the Bears over there? Well, they wouldn't be taxed out of existence, I guess. But what would happen to the city of Chicago if the Bears moved? Yeah, the businesses would follow. Yeah. And that city would be a wasteland. Yeah, April Showers, thank you so much for joining us and reposting the stream. And Simply Soulful says, I've been to Gary, Indiana, and it's so sad how that city has gone down. Yes. And even, I when I was running for president a couple of years ago, I spoke to some individuals, and they were telling me about how the charter schools work and how a lot of the money that when it's pulled from public schools to the charter schools, and let's just say those charter schools fail, that money never goes back to those high schools. Even if they were failing, the money doesn't go back. So now you've got a charter school that's closed down and you've got a high school that's closed down. What happens to these children and their education? Like nobody talks about that part as well. Like there's so many bricks to the foundation that are falling apart in these cities, and it's crazy, but they are trying to tax people into oblivion. You cannot tax your way out of this. But what you could do, this is just my opinion, how about we cut everybody that works for the city's salaries in half? How about we do that? How about you cannot make over $100,000 in any position in a city? That might help alleviate some of the burden, but again, the burden in some of these cities goes back to people that shouldn't be here, that you keep protecting, right? That's the other part of this. So, city employee raises, yes, contractual salary and wage increases for union and non-union employees are included in the 2025 budget, with personnel costs rising by $168.7 million. They have a budget deficit and they're giving people raises. So pension contributions also increased significantly to 2.9 billion, including supplemental payments to strengthen funds. They are fleecing the people in Chicago. It's just so sad. And so you've got Bruce Harrell. He is the Democratic-led mayor of Seattle. Business taxes increased payroll expense tax rates across categories, plus 5% tax on annual compensation over $1 million for Seattle-based employees. This builds on the existing Jumpstart payroll tax aimed at funding public housing and general city operations. Now, the city employee raises, yes, approximately 10,000 city workers are set for raises in 2025 tied to the regional consumer price index, a minimum 2% to maximum 4%. Additional wage adjustments for staff in departments like civil service are budgeted. So the people that work for the city, they're doing well. Again, it's one of those things. If you work for government, you're doing well. And a lot of times people that, like I'm going to say it again, people that are Republicans and people that are maybe independents or libertarians, they don't work for the city's government because they believe in less government. So they would be hypocrites, right? If they were working for the government. So they don't. But the people that do work for the government believe in big government. So it keeps getting bigger. So there needs to be people, regardless of the party they're from, to do right by the people. I've yet to see it. I've yet to see it. Now it even brought up Zorhan Mandani, business taxes, proposals to hike corporate tax rates to align with neighboring states. Interesting. And so again, a lot of these neighboring states have Democrats in these positions, and they believe in big government. Plus increases in personal income taxes on high earners, 3.9% to 5.9% for incomes over $1 million, and other wealth taxes. These are intended to fund expanded social services like free childcare and a $30 minimum wage. It's going to get interesting in New York. I'm just say it. It's going to get really interesting. And Mark from the Soil and Soulful, thank you so much for reposting the stream this morning. Now, city employee raises, yes, for specific groups, including a $24,000 pay hike for city council members and proposed raises for paraprofessionals, education aides via legislation. Broader city employee compensation is part of the $112 billion fiscal 2025 year budget, though not explicitly detailed as new raises beyond ongoing contracts. They are fleecing the people. If they truly cared, they would make sure that the individuals that worked for the city, they were being, how should I say, very fiscally conservative, right? Because as much as they keep saying, we're going to take care of people, you are taxing other people out of money they've earned to give it to other people who aren't earning anything, right? And there are people that are on entitlement programs that are disabled that cannot work. And that small percentage of people I get, but it's other people who are here illegally benefiting from this, other people who just aren't working and they're able-bodied benefiting from this. And then on top of that, insult to injury, you're giving yourself raises and you're working for the city. You're mismanaging the money. Nobody in any of these cities that have deficits should be getting raises. That's my opinion. You should not be getting a dime. Now, I said, is Boston similar? Okay. Now, this is interesting. No, Boston is not similar in imposing new or increased targeting taxes on businesses, right? The city relies heavily on property taxes. But isn't that something that Chicago's doing? They increase the property taxes. Okay. And that's about 72% of their revenue. So they are definitely living off the backs of people. So Mayor Rue has repeatedly proposed legislation to temporarily shift more of the property tax burden onto commercial properties beyond the state allowed 175% differential to relieve residential homeowners amid falling commercial values post-pandemic. Yeah, because everybody's working at home. Nobody's in the office. Why are you going to charge people for the space that they're occupying if no one's going to be in there? It's crazy. It's really insane. However, these proposals have been blocked multiple times by the state Senate. As a result, for the fiscal year 2026, commercial tax rates are set to increase nominally, right? For $26.96 per 1,000 from $25.96, about $1 each. Okay. But many office/commercial properties will see overall tax bills decrease, right? 4.4% or 210,000 in savings for typical buildings due to a 6% drop in assessed values. Again, because no one's there. No one's in the office. Small business relief measures were discussed but not enacted via stalled shifts. Now, city employee raises, yes, modestly. Recent contract include cost of living adjustments. For example, Boston police officers received a 2% wage increase plus hazard duty bump in a 1-year contract covering July 25 to June 26. Other unions have ongoing multi-year agreements with similar incremental raises tied to negotiations and budgets. Their fiscal year 26 operating budget, $4.8 billion, includes personnel costs with typical contractual increases, though not as aggressive as in some other cities. It is crazy out there, you guys. But again, the people that work for the city, they're doing well. The residents aren't. The businesses aren't. There needs to be some adjustments. But again, Democrats believe in big government. They believe that government has the money. They should take care of you. And the way we're going to do it is we're going to tax everybody else to fund it. I'm just sorry. It is in my opinion, it's like Robin Hood syndrome. It is. It's like Robin Hood syndrome. We're going to tax the rich to pay for the poor. It only works for so long because if you're not bringing any money, you know what's really happening. Now, we're not going to listen to this entire video, but I did want to play some of it because it's talking about some of the mass denaturalization that the Trump administration would like to put in place or enforce.
Now, democracynow.org, The War and Peace Report. I'm Amy Goodman. The Trump administration's ramping up efforts to strip more naturalized immigrants of their U.S. citizenship. That's according to a report in the New York Times, which found internal guidance issued this week to U.S. Citizenship and Immigration Services field offices asked that they supply Office of Immigration Litigation with 100 to 200 denaturalization cases per month in the next fiscal year. The Times reports it would represent a massive escalation of denaturalization in the modern era. The news comes less than 2 weeks after the Supreme Court agreed to hear a case to decide the constitutionality of President Trump's executive order aiming to end birthright citizenship. To talk about all of this, as well as the latest threat by the Trump administration that was issued last night to end the visa diversity program, which leads to a green card for so many. We're joined now by May Nye, professor of Asian American Studies and History at Columbia University. Much of her work focuses on immigration, citizenship.
Okay. Now, the video is about 13 minutes long, but I wanted to get into some of what she was talking about. So I kind of just said, sort this out for me, Grok. So I said, according to this video, President Trump wants to escalate denaturalization cases. Can you please give a short outline of the process and what kind of pushback the administration might get? Because I want to know, is it possible? So denaturalization is the revocation of U.S. citizenship for naturalized citizens, typically due to fraud or misrepresentation during the application process. So here's a short step-by-step. Now, there's the investigation part. The U.S. Citizenship and Immigration Services or other agencies identify potential cases through audits, tips, or reviews of naturalization applicants for issues like concealed criminal history, false statements, or affiliations, right? Gang ties, human trafficking, financial fraud. Now, just to take a step from that for a second, remember we had mass immigration under the past administration. A lot of these people weren't vetted. So a lot of these people were like, I don't have paperwork. I don't have these things. So how do you tie these people to any criminal records or activity from their countries, right? And here's my thing. If you did not come through a proper port of entry and you applied for citizenship, right? But you came up through an illegal pathway, you should be denied even the ability to apply for citizenship, period. If you were here under any type of status, temporary status, or any of those interesting statuses that were given, and I'm just talking about under the past administration. I'm not going to go further than that, but let's just isolate just that part. Nobody should be able to apply for citizenship. We've got over 300 ports of entry. What are you talking about? No, because there's nothing to tie to you. You haven't been vetted. You were just let in. You were let in, given a court date and saying, hey, good luck. We'll see you in a few years, not weeks, years. Stop that. Stop it. It's crazy. So the USCIS refers viable cases to the Department of Justice of Immigration, right? Then there might be a civil lawsuit. So the DOJ files a complaint in federal court. The government must prove by clear, unequivocal, and convincing evidence that citizenship was illegally obtained. Do you know how many millions of people you would need? Look, I think you need to take care of the prominent issue first. I don't think it's about just denaturalizing people. I really think it's about looking at who's got a visa, who's got a green card, who's got these different statuses like temporary status in the United States, paroled in the United States, these different allowable, I'll just say allowable statuses. Revoke those, revoke all of them, and you're going to get rid of about 70% of the people. They'll just be gone. They won't even be able to apply because they're not naturalized. But these are for people that are naturalized. You know how much work that's going to take? Lawsuit wise, that's crazy. So court proceedings, the individual can defend themselves if the court rules against them. It issues a denaturalization order, right? Reverting the person to permanent resident status or making them deportable if grounds exist. So I'll just use this as an example. Somebody comes here. They say they're asylum seeker or refugee, right? Then they get naturalized. Well, did you actually come from a country that was asylum or refugee? Because if you didn't, then you lied on your application. Then you can be denaturalized. I'm just using that as an example because, in my opinion, there were a lot of people under the past administration that said, well, I'm a refugee or I'm an asylum seeker. And they were told, if you just say these things, you can get in, even if they weren't from countries that had that status. See, those are statuses that that our government grants. Like Somalia was granted refugee status. This is why the Trump administration said, we're going to deny all of those statuses. So anybody from those countries, they're out. And they've always could have done this because it was granted. Can't just come here to this country and say, I want to be a citizen. You can't. Not as a refugee. Let's just put it that way. Not as a refugee. You cannot have the refugee status unless it's been granted. So all these people coming up through illegal ports of entry, not legal, illegal ports of entry, who said, I'm a refugee. Every single one of their statuses should be revoked and they should be deported. They are here truly illegally. We haven't gotten there yet, but I need y'all to get there. Trump administration, you need to take this pressure off of the backs of the American people. We may not agree on all politics, but what I am saying to everybody out here, we need to stop this because there are harms going on. There are women and children and men being raped and taken advantage of. They're all being treated as slaves right now, whether it's sexual slavery, whether it's work slavery, right? The abuse is happening underneath everything else that's going on. And we haven't even scratched that part of the surface. This needs to end. It needs to be stopped. And when I say stop, I mean, they're getting there, but the Pause Act needs to be passed. And there is no excuse. House and Senate Republicans, you don't have any excuses. I don't want to hear it. You ram this through, you get it done, or we all know that you are in on this. We're not making excuses for you guys anymore. No more excuses. Now, potential pushback. So, escalating to 100 to 200 cases per month could face significant resistance, right? Legal challenges, constitutional and judicial hurdles, potential opposition, resource and practical issues, right? And civil rights concerns. So those are all going to be issues if people are naturalized. Like I said, there's two different conversations that you can have here. For people that are naturalized, right? They've already gone through the process. And he's saying he wants to look at people who may have committed fraud to denaturalize them. Okay, you can do that, but you're going to be tied up in court. But you still need to do that. But again, there are people that are here illegally. And I know that ICE is trying to get that taken care of. Those individuals, that just needs to be sweeping, shut it down. Shut it down. You need to go back to your home country. If you want to return, you have to return here legally. And you have to be out of the United States for a certain amount of years before you can come back. This way, at least people can be vetted going out so you know who they are. So you can at least document who they are, where they come from. Even if they've had any records from their other countries, you can now get that information because these people just walked across with no vetting. That's an issue. That is a complete issue, and we cannot have that. That's an invasion, period. Plain and simple. So I said, was there, a whole sweeping mass denaturalization? He says there was no true mass denaturalization campaign in the early 1900s compared to millions or even hundreds of thousands affected at once. Denaturalization became possible with the Naturalization Act of 1906, which standardized the process and allowed revocation for fraud, illegal procurement, or of intent to reside permanently in the United States. So in 1906, when they said, okay, we need to actually have an act around naturalization, we need to put some more guardrails, pretty much. That's when a lot of people were denaturalized because of the way they got their naturalization. So I think, Trump's kind of trying to bring it back around to that. And I said, can mass denaturalization happen again? Legally possible on a limited scale, but true mass denaturalization, thousands, tens of thousands annually, is highly unlikely due to the strict constitutional procedural safeguards, right? Denaturalization applies only to naturalized citizens, not birthright, right? Grounds are narrow, primarily fraud or willful misrepresentation during naturalization that materially affected approval, concealing criminal history, or persecution involvement. So most have proven in federal court by clear, unequivocal, and convincing evidence a high burden. So process USCIS investigates refers DOJ, the civil suits, and then the individual has full due process rights to defend. Now, some of these individuals that they keep crying out for due process rights, they have how should I say it? They've gotten their due process because they went to court, right? And if they were given and let's just say, for example, they were here temporary protected status, and the judge reviews their case and says, okay, no, your status is revoked. You have immediate deportation orders. When you have an individual like that that doesn't leave, they are here illegally, they are in violation of a court order, and they need to leave. And we have thousands of cases like that because those are the people that ICE is also picking up outside of well-known criminals. So we have a backup just with that. But those people still need to be found. Now, I'm not sure if they're included in this whole sweep to get people out of here. But like I said, denaturalization, it's on another level because people have already been naturalized. But can you go back to people and say, hey, are you still married? You were naturalized. Are you still married to the person? And if you're not married to that person, what were the reasons for your separation or said divorce? Because when people come here, that's the first thing that some people want to do to get their citizenship is get married to an actual U.S. citizen. And when they do that, it's a lot more difficult, right? Especially if they have children with them or whatever. It's a lot more difficult for them to be deported because they're able to say, well, I was here, I got married, I did this, I did that. Yeah. But if your intent was just to marry a U.S. citizen, to become a citizen, that is fraud. I don't know if a lot of people know that it is. You actually have to be in a relationship and you have to be married for a certain amount of time. Yeah. And people don't know that and they think they can just run over here and marry somebody and get divorced and have their citizenship. Those are the people that will get deported. I'm just saying. So do you think there could be mass deportation for those that claimed refugee or asylum status fraudulently to apply for citizenship? And this is something I just mentioned. Yes, mass deportations could occur for individuals who fraudulently claimed refugee or asylum status as a pathway to citizenship, but it would require a multi-step process under existing immigration law, right? Fraud in the initial asylum or refugee application, such as fabricating persecution claims or concealing disqualifying facts, can invalidate the entire status chain. So that's possible. And a lot of people do that. Green card revocation. If asylum fraud led to lawful permanent resident status, USCIS can rescind it administratively within 5 years of issuance or through removal proceedings afterwards. So if they committed any fraud during their application process and it's found, they're done. And those are the cases probably that he will be looking at, right? Or that the Trump administration will be looking at. So it's, like I said, it's on. It's on now. It's sad. I want people here legally. I don't want them here illegally. But at the same token, I want our border shut down administratively to give us time as a country to vet out who shouldn't be here and make sure that the people who did this the right way are protected. Period. That's all. And I know it sounds a lot simpler, right, than what I'm stating. But people that have done this the right way, who've come through the proper port of entry correctly, done their paperwork, waited their turn, did everything right, it's abusive to me for other people who've done everything wrong to be able to game the system and get support for it, gaming the system. That's wrong. That's wrong. It should not be. So with that, let's get into our last video. I'm not going to play the whole thing. I'm just going to play part of it, and then we will, end our broadcast for today.
And gentlemen, we have a lot to talk about today. Donald Trump dropped nightmare news on the president of Mexico and her drug cartels. Today, we seized a third Venezuelan oil tanker as 54 Venezuelan Tren de Aragua gang members are arrested for a nationwide robbery scheme. I only mention them because it's related to the oil tanker seizure. And last but not least, the Department of Justice does Donald Trump a massive disservice by fumbling the release of the Epstein files on Friday. As always, like the video and subscribe to the channel. Make sure you guys watch this one till the end. But let's start with the 54 Venezuelan gang members because it ties everything together.
That breaking news, a federal grand jury in the District of Nebraska hands down 2 indictments on dozens of people. It's for an alleged ATM jackpotting scheme. 54 people have been charged for their roles in a conspiracy to deploy malware and steal millions of dollars from ATMs in the United States. One of the people indicted is Jimena Romina Araya Navarro. The United States Attorney's Office says he's an alleged Tren de Aragua leader and Venezuelan entertainer. The feds say this nationwide scheme included burglaries of many ATMs located in Nebraska. If convicted, the defendants involved face prison time between 20 to 335 years.
I played that first because there's a lot of speculation regarding our aggressive stance with Venezuela. Is it for regime change? Is it for oil? Is it to stop drugs? Is it for democracy? Is it for national security? The answer is all of those things. But it's also about Nicolas Maduro and the entire world broadly using Joe Biden's open border as an easy and permanent fix to all their problems. Why spend the money housing a prison population when you can just send them all to the United States? Why spend the money on caring for the mentally ill when you can just send them to the United States? Why do all the hard work of governing instead of enriching yourself when you can just send all your poorest constituents to the United States? And it's not just Nicolas Maduro who's guilty of this. Mexico engaged in the same behavior, and in a clip I'll show you a little bit later, the president admits it. So yeah, it's about regime change. Nicolas Maduro is an illegitimate leader who runs a narco government. He lost his last election but refused to relinquish power. He's cozied up to China, Russia, and Iran and allowed our foreign adversaries to set up shop in our backyard. Thus, the national security concerns. It's certainly about the oil. Hugo Chavez nationalized the oil industry in 2007 and robbed tens of billions of dollars of American oil assets. And sure, it's about the drugs, but realistically, not that much fentanyl comes from Venezuela. But it's also certainly revenge for sending hundreds of thousands of gang members, criminals, and mentally unstable people into the United States, endangering the public and fueling a humanitarian crisis. And it's not only bad because the people are dangerous and cause social dysfunction, but it creates a network for the cartel government of people established within enemy territory. It's the oldest trick in the book. Do what we say in America or we harm your family back home in Venezuela. And their economy is fragile, and Nicolas Maduro's house of cards is being propped up on illegal oil sales to Iran and China. So that's why we seized a third tanker today.
Rising tension between the U.S. and Venezuela is escalating. American forces seizing yet another oil tanker today, making it the third vessel this month. Bloomberg now reporting the tanker was headed toward Venezuela. The specific location for the operation has not been revealed just yet, but this is the second ship in just 24 hours. On Saturday, a ship was docked in Venezuela prior to the Coast Guard's apprehension. Officials officials are claiming that the vessel is carrying oil and is subject to U.S. sanctions. Secretaries Hegseth and Nome both taking to social media to thank the U.S. Coast Guard for its involvement in the operation.
Now, personally, this is the course of action I prefer. There is no power in the entire Western Hemisphere that could challenge our naval blockade. China's not going to send their navy across the Pacific Ocean to help Venezuela, and so the government will run out of money, Nicolas Maduro's grasp on power will slip, and hopefully the people of Venezuela can liberate themselves without intervention from the United States military. Venezuela is a huge, massive country, and unless we're willing to turn it into a parking lot, kill millions of people, and displace tens of millions more, it would turn into another Vietnam if we tried a ground invasion. It would also destabilize all of South America, create another humanitarian crisis, and inevitably lead to millions of migrants at the United States border. So I think a strong military presence to enforce an actual blockade and slowly bleed the country dry is the best course of action. But as sure as the sun rises in the east and sets in the west, here comes Lindsey Graham taking this completely rational course of action and saying we should also do that to Russia.
Here's what I hope President Trump will do. Signed my bill that has 85 co-sponsors and put tariffs on countries like China who buy cheap Russian oil. Make Russia a state sponsor of terrorism for kidnapping 20,000 Ukrainian kids. And most importantly, seize ships that are carrying sanctioned Russian oil like you're doing in Venezuela.
I showed that because his rhetoric does Donald Trump a disservice, because it distorts the intent of an otherwise reasonable and mostly peaceful alternative and makes it seem like the Republican Party are just warmongers who want to sacrifice American life at the expense of enriching defense contractors, instead of what Donald Trump is doing, which is trying to achieve peace through strength. But Thomas Massie condemned the seizing of Venezuelan oil tankers on the House floor, and this is how we get into Mexico. Watch.
Mr. Speaker, James Madison warned us that in no part of the Constitution is more wisdom to be found than in the clause which confides the question of war and peace to the legislature and not the executive. Madison called it the crown jewel of Congress. The framers understood a simple truth. To the extent that war-making power devolves to one person, liberty dissolves. If the president believes military action against Venezuela is justified and needed, he should make the case and Congress should vote before American lives and treasure are spent on regime change in South America. Let's be honest about likely outcomes. Do we truly believe that Nicolas Maduro will be replaced by a modern-day George Washington? How did that work out? In Cuba, Libya, Iraq, or Syria, previous presidents told us to go to war over WMDs, weapons of mass destruction, that did not exist. Now it's the same playbook, except we're told that drugs are the WMDs. If it were about drugs, we'd bomb Mexico.
So Thomas Massie has made it clear he's against military action in any form for any reason. And idealistically, I agree with him. But I personally think there's no better use of the United States military than ensuring that we don't have terroristic narco states established in our own backyard. Back in the day, Pablo Escobar tried running for president of Colombia, and I believe this is after he already succeeded becoming governor of the Sinaloa province. But he didn't win because the international community, and specifically the United States, would have absolutely destroyed Colombia's economy for electing the world's biggest cocaine leader. So since then, these quasi-narco governments set up by backing and funding politicians that will let them act with impunity. And in exchange, the cartels kill all of their political opponents and share a piece of the profits with the government. This way, the government has plausible deniability. They won't face the condemnation and sanctions from the international community. And not only are we seeing that in Venezuela, but we're seeing it in Mexico with their President Claudia Sheinbaum. I can't even tell you how many of her political opponents got assassinated over the last 2 years. And because most of the fentanyl coming into America comes through Mexico, Donald Trump dropped some news that should terrify both Claudia Sheinbaum and her cartels.
3 days ago, the president reclassified fentanyl as a weapon of mass destruction. This has huge implications for Mexico, not just Venezuela. The fentanyl comes from Mexico, and we know that the president of Mexico, Claudia Sheinbaum, has a lot of cartel ties. So what do you think this means for the hemisphere and for bilateral relations between us and Mexico?
I think they better watch out. I think there's a new sheriff in town. His name is Donald J. Trump. And on the world stage, there's nobody better. Ma'am, I don't want him teaching my daughter's dadgum Sunday school class, but I sure as heck love him in the White House because he goes after bad people, and they understand that. That's why you don't see us insulted internationally anymore as we did the last 4 years. Under Biden, we'd write a strong letter or ask the UN for permission. We've got a real president in the White House, and he gets it. He gets the world stage. That's why America is stronger than it ever has been militarily.
So not only on day one did Donald Trump classify the cartels as foreign terrorist organizations, but now to give him further ability to crack down on the border and in some cases in Mexico, he has classified the fentanyl being smuggled in by these cartels on the same level as trafficking biological weapons or nuclear weapons. This means the president of Mexico now has a very strong incentive to prevent her cartel buddies from trafficking any more fentanyl into America, because that could prompt severe retaliation from the United States military. Again, nobody wants war. Nobody's advocating for war. But as much as we like to get involved in foreign skirmishes that have nothing to do with us, I think it makes sense that the United States military would be activated to prevent the smuggling of a drug that has killed hundreds of thousands of Americans to date. But the president of Mexico has recently been bragging about her country's economic success, thanks to all those beautiful cartel bucks she's spending to buy goodwill with the people through social projects. But in her moment of hubris, she accidentally reveals a graph that shows it has nothing to do with all of her welfare reforms. It's because they sent all their poor people and criminals into America during Biden's open border. Take a look.
Perdón. Este es pobreza 35.3 y clase media 27.2%. En el 22, recuerden que aquí fue la pandemia, una caída del 8% del Producto Interno Bruto y pues mucho sufrimiento, no solo por cuestiones de salud, sino también por la economía, es algo que vivió el mundo entero, por el cierre de los negocios derivado de la pandemia. Y después, en 2022, de acuerdo con el Banco Mundial, es la primera vez desde, porque desde aquí se mide, no se tiene atrás, es la primera vez que en México hay más personas que están reconocidas como en clase media y menos personas en pobreza. Y luego viene el brinco del 2024. Fíjense, comparen esto.
So her graph showed that starting in 2021, there was a drastic decline of people in poverty and a sharp increase of people in the middle class. And she wants you to believe that's due to economic reform and her socialist programs. But it's exclusively caused by all the country's poor people being sent into America, thus decreasing the percentage of the population that's technically living in poverty. Talk about manipulating numbers to paint a narrative. It is not a MAGA conspiracy that the entire world saw Joe Biden's open border as a solution to all their problems, gifted by God, handed to them on a silver platter. America says they're taking anybody? Oh yeah, everybody out the jails, everybody out the slums. And the cartels got filthy rich from trafficking every person across the border. And now they have a robust network of people within America to do their bidding for them. But now, last but certainly not least, let's touch on these Epstein files. Pam Bondi and the Department of Justice absolutely dropped the ball on this release. The Epstein file release on Friday is being characterized by images like this, Or like this, the entire 119-page grand jury records being completely redacted. And to top it off, the Department of Justice saying they redacted names of politicians and other high-profile individuals due to national security and foreign policy implications. Now, you guys know me, I've spoke candidly about this for some time. Idealistically, just like everybody else, I would love nothing more than the world's most powerful and influential people to be brought to justice for their nefarious crimes. It is despicable, it is disgusting. But I also know it is a complete pipe dream. I now see why the Biden administration didn't make any promises to release these files. They knew they couldn't either. Let me also be clear. If Donald Trump was incriminated in any serious way, the Democrats would have released that information, even if it meant taking down 10 Democrats, 100 Democrats, 1,000 Democrats. They wanted to leverage the existing public knowledge that Donald Trump had a relationship with Jeffrey Epstein in the 90s to charge him as guilty in the court of public opinion. Because if there was anything tangible, they would have also tried him in the court of law. Donald Trump made the mistake of trying to appeal to the anti-deep state base, knowing that this was something they cared passionately about, and vowing to be the one to take down the puppeteers, the powers that be, knowing that he would never be able to do that. And now, because of the complete spectacle they've turned it into during this first year, it will be a permanent point of discontent for Trump's entire second term. That's why he didn't want to put any focus on this. Democrats will always be able to use this as a talking point now. There will always be a fracture in the MAGA base because of this now. No matter what Donald Trump accomplishes over his second term, it will be met with, yeah, but he didn't release the Epstein files. The fact that they said government officials and other high-profile individuals were being redacted for national security and foreign policy implications tells you everything you need to know. This scandal is so big, it would bring down the entire world. The United States would be the cause of destabilization and chaos across the globe. I don't think people have even thought through what happens once all these names are released. Once all of this evidence is exposed. This president, that president, this billionaire, the CEO of this company, the head of this bank, are all exposed in the Epstein files for being disgusting, immoral devils. What happens then? Is there some global trial like Nuremberg where they're all held accountable? Does each country individually arrest these people? Does the International Criminal Court bring charges? Who enforces these charges? And do you expect these people to just turn themselves in? Or do you think these people pull their levers of power in various governments across the world and stop that from happening? Or do you think these people just load up in their private jets and fly to a country that vows not to extradite them, who are happy for them to bring their money and wealth into their country? Is the world going to go to war with whatever country harbors them? Or what happens when they prompt a global economic collapse as a diversion so all these governments have something else to worry about? Again, please don't misunderstand me. I am not defending these people. I think they are vile, and I think the world would be a much better place without them. I'm just upset that it's played out in this dysfunctional way. I really wish Trump wouldn't have promised this to appeal to the anti-establishment base. Brought in Kash Patel and Dan Bongino as the guys who were going to ensure that it came to light. Handed binders to influencers showing off the records. Pam Bondi saying the list is on her desk. Now there's no list, or there's some list, but they can't release all of it. And the Democrats have completely weaponized it to their advantage. They don't care about justice for the survivors. They don't care about being objective and holding whatever Democrats are in the files accountable to. In the files they released, we saw Bill Clinton, we saw Bill Gates, and I don't hear a peep from Democrats about sending them to jail. They only care about it so far as it's their smoking gun to get Donald Trump. And the more that Pam Bondi butchers the release of these files, the more ammo the Democrats get that this is a massive cover-up and Trump's involved. Even when we know and they know that he's not. It's just great political leverage for them. And I fear that we're going to let the dissatisfaction around the Epstein files blind us to any other possible accomplishments Donald Trump might achieve. And all we're going to do as a result of that is hand power back over to the Democrats. But let me know what you guys think down in the comment section below. What is the crazy?
Yeah. And everything he said, he's not wrong at all. That's the crazy part. He's not wrong about these Epstein files. And like I've told you guys continuously as I've done this broadcast, I want people sent to prison. And if they are not being sent to prison, why are we even having this conversation? You don't care. You don't care about the people that suffered under these monsters. And I'm going to refer to them as monsters, alleged monsters, right? Because we don't know who's in the files, but they're monsters. And they're still committing these crimes to other people because they've never been locked up and they know that there are people that can protect them. So who are you protecting, Pam? You're not protecting the victims, but you sure are protecting these heads of state of different countries and these different politicians. Everyone has now been exposed, the Republicans and the Democrats. And I want to just ask, I want to get a pulse, as they call a pulse check. Where is your trust with our government? Because see, if you can do this, then you are doing everything else. I really think Dan Bongino and Kash Patel, they were plants. And this is just my conspiracy theory. I will allegedly put my tinfoil hat on. I think they were plants to goat President Trump into hiring them because at the end of the day, they were in on the deceit and the deception. And I will say allegedly, because apparently, Dan Bongino, he wants to get back to podcasting. You've made yourself a pariah. You told everybody right, conditional, if I got back in, I'd do this, I'd do that, and you did nothing. And now you want to come back to your podcast like everybody's going to prop you up as this hero. You are a pariah. And anybody that wants to go along with that, hey, be my guest. But it is disgusting that you went in and you got nothing done. And you did nothing for the American people. And again, I believe that you were a plant, just like Kash Patel. Why would you say Kash Patel's a plant? Why is he on the jet chasing his girlfriend around more than he's getting things done? When he complained about the previous director of the FBI doing the same thing, and he's doing it with impunity and even more than that director. You were a plant from the beginning. And I'm just disgusted with myself because I actually supported you. I actually said, well, he's worked for the FBI. He knows where some of the bones were buried. Maybe he'll actually help. No. You appealed to the ego of the president and you were able to get the job. Hate to say the Democrats were right in not wanting you to be a part of the FBI, but maybe that was a part of it, right? They wanted the public outcry. I think they were in on it too. It was a complete ruse as far as I'm concerned, because look at where we are. Pam Bondi, you're in on it too. You're all in on it. If you didn't fix it, you're in on it. Like, that's it. There's no in between. There's no, no. If you didn't fix it while you were there to have the opportunity to fix it, you're in on it. All of you should be going, Mr. Patel, you need to put in your resignation. Pam Bondi, you need to put in your resignation. And even anybody else under them agreeing with how this has gone forth, you need to put in your resignation because you don't care about this country. You're more concerned about your life style and how you're going to benefit. I don't even want to see a book come out talking about, oh yeah, this is what I went through. No, nobody wants to hear from you. You've made yourselves pariahs. You have. And you need to put in your resignation, walk away in shame, and find a dark hole and hide in it till Jesus returns. Like, I'm just saying. And pray for forgiveness. Like, get your life together. Just saying. You need to go. We will be better off without you being in these positions because you are not helping the American people. You lied to all of us with impunity. The only two people that I can see that people got pushed back that didn't lie would be RFK and Tulsi Gabbard. Those two. Those 2 appointments, because they're going after them heavy, but they're doing their job. In spite of people shouting them down, they're doing their job. And they're pressing forward. They're not giving up. They're not backing down. Yeah. But those other 3 that I mentioned, yeah, they need to walk away in shame. They need to take the walk of shame and just leave now. Leave now. Because obviously you don't care about what happens to the American people. You have absolutely no integrity. None. Zero. And with that, we're going to end the broadcast for today. Thank you so much for joining me here on Unfiltered Vision News for Recap Monday. We will be back tomorrow with Tell It All Tuesday. It's going to be a short week this week. So for Wednesday, we will have open mic. It is Women and Wellness Wednesday, but I'll leave it open for everybody to join the open mic, because I know the last time that happened during Thanksgiving, and I was like, oh man, I should have just invited everybody to, kind of be on, because I was, again, our last repost. Our last post for the week, our broadcast, right, for the week. So this Wednesday, being that it's going to be Christmas Eve. Wow, it's here already, guys. So the year has gone so fast. I'm going to open it up to everybody on Women and Wellness Wednesday. So just let me know to email you the link for the show that day, or send it to you, right, via direct message on X, preferably X, because I can get to it a lot quicker from the broadcast. So thank you guys so much for joining me here on Unfiltered Vision News. And remember, stay well, stay focused, and stay unfiltered. We'll see you in the next one.